Yes, welcome to Keeping Score, ladies and gentlemen. On this rainy Tuesday afternoon, it's a very special edition of Keeping Score, as it is on a Tuesday. But you know what? We have a very special guest who deserves to be accommodated. I've really been looking forward to this show ever since I've started this show. And I've planned out my guest. I've been especially looking forward to this show. You can find him 9 to noon on WABC. It's the Bernie and Sid Show. I interned there this summer, and that's 770 on your AM dial. He's also the author of this book right here, You're Wrong and You're Ugly, which you can find on Amazon. It's Sid Rosenberg. Sid, how are you?
Hey, Gill, how are you, pal? It may be a little noisy. I live in New York City. We don't have phones in New York City. You have to use your cell phone. And in my apartment on the 21st floor, the service isn't very good. So I need to stand when I do these interviews. I do about 5 a week across the country. I need to stand in front of my apartment building. So I'm coming to you live right now from Hanover and Pearl, right across the street from a busy and loud South Street Seaport. So if it sounds busy, that's what happens when you live in New York City. Yeah,
well, that's all right. You know, we are a New York focused show, so it'll fit the mood. Anyway, so it's Tuesday, but I still want to start by asking you, how was your weekend? There was a change of plans, wasn't there?
How was my weekend? There was a change of plans. Now, you got to understand, I got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Between the 2 radio shows, and
right.
I failed to include 6 to 9 every morning. I do Imus, and not just sports. I do that.
Yeah.
I literally just came downstairs after watching Wake Forest beat Boston College in
okay.
the ACC tournament. I'll be at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn tomorrow night. I got 2 kids. I got a wife. I got a lot going on. So what happened that I'm missing in my own life this weekend?
Francesicon. You were going to go to Francesicon, but
yes.
but then you decided not to.
Yeah, listen, we had a great time with that, specifically on the Imus show. Me and Bernie covered it a little bit, but certainly it became a theme on the Imus show. Imus and Francesca friendly for 25 years, and both of those guys really integral in the success of WFAN. It was really Imus, the Mets, and Mike and the Mad Dog. So he got a kick out of it. He wasn't even familiar with it. It was the 4th Francesca Con, maybe the last, with Mike, of course, leaving FAN in December. They may do one more, but it may be the last. And so we had some fun with it. I never really had any real intentions of going, to be honest. I mean,
really?
Between us, Gill, a lot of those Mike Francesa fans don't like me because of the feud. A lot do. A lot of those guys do, but some don't. And I wasn't going to put myself in a situation on a Saturday afternoon, A, take time away from my family, which I love to spend time with on the weekends, and B, put myself in a position where one drunken Mike Francesa fan does something stupid. I knock that guy out, I get arrested, and I'm in big trouble. So we just thought it'd be better off if I let Mike enjoy the day and kept my distance.
Right. Well, that's certainly understandable. Did Guns go?
Guns did go. In fact, he had a chance to speak to Mike. He talked about that encounter on Imus first thing Monday morning. And as I predicted, with no surprise, as soon as Guns introduced himself to Francesa unprovoked went into a whole Sid Rosenberg conversation, which included Sid's delusional, Sid's a liar, Sid this, Sid that. So for all the folks out there that claim that I'm obsessed with Mike, they have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what the relationship has been between me and Mike the last, now going on 16 years, working together, him doing the show after me for nearly 6 years, me filling in for Mike for, like I said, 11 years. They have no idea what the relationship is. And truth is, I'm the ham and egger. I'm the guy making, a couple of $100,000 and getting fired every couple of years and moving from state to state. He's a $5 million a man guy. And he's the one. He introduced this topic when a caller called his show on FAN 2 weeks ago. He did it for 3 consecutive nights. Like I said, went to Guns and brought me up. I have text messages which I sent to Imus, tons of them from Francesa. So anybody who claims I'm obsessed with Mike is an idiot. They have no idea what they're talking about. The obsession goes one way, and it's Francesa to Rosenberg.
Yeah, well, I'm not one of those people. I'm a Sid Rosenberg guy. And I promise we'll move on from this pretty quickly. Where did you leave it off with Mike, though? I know that you were texting a little bit back and forth, and you don't need to share anything you don't want to share. But where did you really leave it off with him?
Basically he just said to me, look, make like I never met you. You never met me. He goes, I got nothing against you personally. I got nothing against you, but I don't like the fact that you picking on me, making fun of me, bashing me all the time. So, just stop doing it, basically. And I didn't answer, and I can tell you that his last text to me was about 10 days ago, and I continue to bash Mike on the Imus show and even on the Bernie show. And Mike, of course, made it very easy this week with his asinine comments. At the very least, are asinine, something they're misogynistic or chauvinistic, when he said that a woman couldn't coach a men's basketball team, which is so effing stupid, but, of course, perfect for Mike Francesa. So even if I wanted to stop bashing Francesa, being there's a big story about him in both papers in New York today, he makes it very easy to go back and start bashing him again.
That's right. It's like Trump. He gives you a lot of material. It's hard.
No, he does. And again, for the guy who's the king, and listen, it's funny because I readily admit this every single time I talk about Mike. In 25 years when they write the book about the great sports talk radio hosts in the history of the medium, Chapter 1 is not going to be Chris Russo, as much as I love Dog. Chapter 1 is not going to be Dan Patrick or Jim Rome or Dan Levitard or, quite frankly, Sid Rosenberg. Chapter 1 is going to be Mike Francesa, and he deserves it. The guy's been number one in the biggest market in the world for going on 25 years. Even when Mad Dog left, to his credit, he maintained great ratings and great revenue. So he deserves to get all the applause and the praise. He has been number one, but with that, he's become a complete tool, just an arrogant, miserable jerk.
Yeah.
And all this stuff that he does on the side, it doesn't affect him. But truth is, if he wasn't in New York and didn't have these rabid fans who want to hear Mike talk about the Mets and the Yankees and the Jets and the Giants, it may be a different story. But he's in the right place, started at the right time, and he took advantage of it.
Right, and you use the word become because I think that you guys were basically cool. I mean, he wrote a great foreword in your book where in classic Mike Francesa's style, he kept repeating the same thing, only in this case, that thing was actually, I like Sid. Dog didn't like him, but I did. So was there a time where that changed? Because, from reading your book,
me and Mike were actually friends.
Yeah.
Me and Mike were actually friends. I would go, when I say friends, like we didn't dine together. He always has lived in a very fancy part on Long Island. Since I've been back to New York, I lived everywhere from Chelsea to Battery Park to Brooklyn to Tenafly, New Jersey. So we don't, quote-unquote, hang out. But I will tell you that at FAN at times we were very friendly, had great conversations on and off the air. And then, of course, and I'll say this to the day I die, and I mean this, he tried to hire me. When Mad Dog left, he called me. It was a Sunday morning. I was at a bagel restaurant in Boca Raton with my wife and parents. They all saw the phone call. I actually got up from the table, went outside to talk to Francesa, called me early Sunday morning and said, Mad Dog left. I've got a plan to get you back to New York. Can you get out of your contract?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, my God, Mike Francesa in New York? Of course I'll get out. And he went on to call me again the very next day. It was a Monday. It was after my show was over at $7.90 the ticket. I was doing mornings, and Levitard was doing afternoons. I said, here's my plan. I'm going to hire you and Max Kellerman. Kellerman's a Yankee guy. You're a Met guy. Kellerman's a Jet guy. You're a Giant guy. Kellerman's an analytics guy. You're an emotion guy. Kellerman has the smart fan. You're the loyal guy. New Yorkers love you. And so when I go on vacation and take time off, it'll still be a two-man show with you and Max. It'll work out great. And I love the idea. And he said, don't sign any contracts, because I was thinking about signing a contract extension down in Florida. Don't do any deals. Don't do anything, and don't tell us. So what I need you to do is to fly up to New York, meet me and Sherney at a diner. It was the Neptune Diner in Astoria, right by the train tracks, and I will explain to you even more about my plan. So a couple of days later, I lied to my bosses in Florida. I only got fired for it. And I did, in fact, take this clandestine flight to Queens. I did meet with Mike and Sherney, and the wheels were in motion to get the hiring done. I tell you, you can't even make this up. I used to work with Craig Carton back at WNEW in the year 2000. Craig and I covered a giant Ravens Super Bowl in Orlando.
Yeah.
He lent me $500 that weekend. He had been telling people they owed him $1,000, $2,000, $5,000. That's Craig. He's full of shit sometimes. Excuse me for cursing. Make a long story short, the Francesa thing was so serious that Chernoff called me and said, listen, if you're going to be doing afternoons with Francesa, you need to get along with the morning show with Boomer Esiason and Craig Carton. So do me a favor. Whatever you owe Craig, whether it's 100, 200, 500, 5,000, I don't care, whatever it is, take care of it so we can all get together. So I called Craig, and sure enough, I sent him back $750. I decided after about 10 years he was worthy of $250 worth of interest. Craig even called me and said, Why did you send me 750? All he owed me was 500. So why would I make that story up? I actually sent Craig Carton money that owed him for 10 years based upon Chernoff's request to make sure the two shows got along, when in fact I was hired back in New York.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, it really does sound like he is in fact the delusional one, and I'm not just sucking up to you.
No, he's not delusional. He's lying. Delusional is one thing. Delusional, he's flat out lying.
Yeah.
Nobody in my family was very familiar with what was going on at the time. My wife was even looking back in Tenafly, New Jersey, to rent a house. We called Phil Simms. I was on the phone with Jim Nance. I mean, these are all true stories. All these people, if you ask them in a moment of honesty, would tell you that. Nobody can figure out why Mike Francesa is lying. And, of course, up here, because he's got millions of fans, literally, and he's got the bully pulpit, he gets the last word. But the truth is, Mike Francesa is a liar.
Yeah. Another thing he's saying is that that you want to be back at the Fan. That makes no sense because you just signed a 3-year extension at WABC with the Bernie and Sid Show. And congratulations for that. I want to kind of move on from Mike and start talking about you. So when did you realize, because it's been a little over a year now, I worked with you guys in the summer where there was a lot of Donald Trump. Okay, it was in the thick of the campaign, and I couldn't really imagine, just because I had never heard it, I couldn't imagine the show without the services of Trump's presidential campaign. But I have to say, post the election, I love the mix. There's a little bit of sports, there's politics, there's pop culture. It's whatever, and it's fantastic. When did you realize you had something special with the Bernie and Sid Show?
Well, I knew right away. I mean, listen, I remember when I got fired back in 2005 and had to move to Florida. I kept in touch with Bernard all those years, and we always said we should do a show together. We had never done a show together before, but we knew that the two of us together would be really, really good. So we kept in touch, and he would email me and call me, and I would do the same over the 10 years. And then, of course, August of 2015, on a whim, basically, I decided to email Craig Schwab. He's a PD at WNEW. I had even forgotten, by the way, that he was my assistant at ABC. I had forgotten he was my assistant PD back at WNEW in 2000. So 16 years prior, I actually worked with Craig Schwab, but I forgot about that. Sent him an email and said, listen, me and Bernard are still very, very close. I know Bernard is doing a lot of fill-in shows over the summer and during holidays. I don't know what you guys are doing for fill-in guys, but, Craig, I've got a loyal New York following. Craig is very good friends with Mark Chernoff. I've got a very loyal New York following. I know what's going on. I know you think of me as a sports guy, but here are 3 interviews. And I sent them an interview with me and Chuck Todd, me and Mike Huckabee, and me and I forget the other presidential candidate. May have been Marco Rubio, I forget. And I sent them 3 interviews, and I said, listen to this, because I know you think of this a dopey sports guy.
Yeah.
And if, in fact, you like it, I'm the guy for you. I've got the New York. I love New York. I've got the bravado. I've got the fans already built in. You got nothing to lose. Give me a shot. And that was August. I can tell you that, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks after that, we got a show, our first tryout show together, me and Bernard. And then 4 months after that, we got 2 more shows. And it took about 6-7 months between the first time I emailed Craig Schwab to actually get a full-time gig in New York. At the time, 640 decided to let me go back in December 28th of 2015. They let me go. Because it was August of 2015, excuse me, not 16, when I contacted Schwab. And less than a month after that, I was working in New York City. But I knew right away when we got on the air that we were going to be good because I knew that no one else did what we did. Evan and Joe on FAN, our competition, I guess, they're knee-deep in the sports minutia, which for me got very boring over the years. Mark Simone, WOR, gets better ratings than us. He does. He's on a big-time station with Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh on the Mets. But he does a very straightforward political show. I knew that me and Bernard, because of our age, because of our likes and dislikes, would be able to, in our history together, both comedic and serious, would be able to do something that no one else does. So I knew about a month in, Gill, and we had something real good going on, and we've gotten better. The show is gaining more popularity, and I can tell you that we are the future of WABC, no question.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and I look forward to watching you guys grow and perhaps even being a part of it. If I can, you got the extra hour, and I'm sure more and more cards will be coming into play in the future. And I agree with you that the mix is really unparalleled. And I listen to mostly sports talk, actually all sports talk except the Bernie and Sid Show. but it's becoming easier and easier almost, and I mean this in a good way, to do what you guys do, because I feel like the worlds of sports and politics are colliding on a more regular basis than ever before. You have the Kaepernick incident, LeBron's being outspoken, James Dolan is exposed or I don't know, exposed is the wrong word, but he contributes to Trump's campaign, and now everyone talks about that. You've been in sports for a really long time, and you followed politics for a really long time. Have you ever seen those worlds clash more than they are today?
No, because I've also never seen such the country clash more than it does today. I mean, I've never seen such vitriol and visceral reaction from the left and from the right, and that includes ball players. Like you said, LeBron James won't stay in Donald Trump's hotel when the Cavaliers come to New York to play the Knicks. He's been outspoken. J.R. Smith has been outspoken. Many, many others. So really, come on. Huh? Really, all sports is a microcosm of what's going on across the country today. This is our society. People are pissed off. People are more outspoken. And every little thing seems to blow up into a huge story, whether it's Charles Oakley getting thrown out of the Garden. That works for us because we're a local New York show. You see, the beauty is we try to be as local as we can. So whether a story is about sports, I don't care if it's a guy masturbating on the subway. If it's a New York story, it works for me and Bernard. And that's also where the show, I think, really has gained some popularity, in that we are not just about politics and straight-up news. If anything happens in New York, if David Wright gets hurt for the Mets, if the Rangers, I know this is a crazy one, but if the Rangers are going to play for the Stanley Cup, that's going to be on the Bernie and Sid Show. So It's not just the fact that, yes, LeBron James is talking about Hillary Clinton, and you mentioned a few other things, Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem. If anything happens in New York City, we're going to talk about it. And the other shows, especially on the sports shows, they can't guarantee you that.
But early in your career, and you mentioned this already, you worked with Craig Carton in Cleveland. And I want to kind of get into this transition a little bit. You wanted to stick to sports, right, when you worked with Craig?
No, actually, I hired Craig. It's a long story, but I came to New York in 2000 with a guy named Scott Kaplan.
Yeah.
Scott Kaplan and I worked together for 3 years down in Florida, and we started our career together at CBS Sportsline, strictly on the internet, and we had a whole internet radio station. Scott and I were the headliners. He did the afternoon show, but the midday show down there was C.J. Silas, had just gotten fired from WIP in Philadelphia, Craig Carton. So I got to know Craig down at CBS Sportsline in Florida. Make a long story short, when Scott and I came to New York in 2000, Scott got fired about 6 months in, and the PD there, Jeremy Coleman, who's now at XM Sirius, was looking for a placement to work with me. We tried out Jay Glazer. We tried out John Riggins. We tried out Eddie Ift, the comedian. We tried out a bunch of people. Blaine Ensley, who worked with Rocky Allen at PLJ. And then one day I was in Jeremy's office, and I saw a resume from Craig Carton. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know what? I worked with this guy down in Florida. He's a very, he's an affable guy, funny guy, has charisma, pretty good on the air. Let's bring in Craig. And they hired Craig. Craig will never admit this. He's like Francesa. Based on my recommendation, I hired Craig to be my partner at WNEW. Now, in the end, he stabbed me in the back, and I ended up leaving NEW and going to WFAN. But that's how Craig Carton and I got together 17 years ago at WNEW.
Yeah. And when did you start integrating politics into your radio shows that I know?
Now, I would say about 4 years ago. When I went to 640, I did some of it at 790, the ticket. They really didn't like it. I did a little more at 560 WQAM. Joe Bell was a little better with it. But even those guys would bitch and complain. It wasn't until it became the morning show at 640. In the beginning, the boss there, Steve Lappa, he wasn't thrilled about it either, but he never really stopped me. And then he started to see it paying dividends. Big name guests coming on a regular basis. Our show being written up in trade magazines and papers for stuff outside of sports. So while Joe Rose was talking to, who knows, I don't know, some wide receiver from the Dolphins, Brian Hartline, I'm talking to Chuck Todd, and we got a lot more attention. So Steve Lapp eventually came over and said, you know what, you're doing something big here. So it was really 2013, 2014, my last gig down in South Florida, 640 Sports. The two guys I had working with me, Eric Lengel and Steve Zemak, were so good. They enjoyed doing it as well. They got into the whole political thing, too. It was a great show. That was really the time, 2013, 2014, at 640 Sports.
Did you ever feel like you were alienating half of your viewership? Florida, it's a swing state.
Yeah,
but
I don't
no?
care about that. If you're not, if you're too immature,
Yeah.
you won't listen. Listen, anybody, you can say what you want about me. You can say I'm a jerk, I'm obnoxious, I'm this, I'm that. I find it hard to believe they're going to tell me I'm not a talented guy. Being the opportunities I've been given, working now at WINS, WNEW, WABC, and WFAN in New York City, and hosting morning shows at all three major Miami stations. When somebody says, Sid, you suck, you're bad on the air, it's laughable. Those guys who say that are the guys that either don't agree with me on sports or don't agree with me politically. I don't need those guys. I don't need that.
Yeah.
I don't mind listening to a radio show where I disagree with somebody or somebody's a Democrat if I'm not. To me, it's not about that. It's about, are you thought-provoking? Are you entertaining? Are you funny? How do you get along with the guests and the callers? When you do all that well, that's a really good radio show. So if you're going to be immature enough to say, Sid sucks, or I'm not going to listen because he may say something bad about Donald Trump, I don't watch anyway.
Right. I 100% agree. Most of the things, I'm a huge Bernard McGurk fan, and I disagree with, 70-80% of his politics. But so I agree that people need to look at other things and be a little bit more used to hearing other views and be a little bit more tolerant to alternative views. So you voted for Hillary. If there was a re-election, would you do it again?
No, I'd never do that again. That was a big mistake. I'm sick to my stomach. I can't stand the left. I don't love Donald Trump either. It's not like I've warmed up to him tremendously. But the more and more I realize who the people in charge, people like Keith Ellison, we talk about this quite a bit. Barack Obama giving $250 million to the Palestinians, his last day in office. That ridiculous deal with Iran who wants to destroy Israel with John Kerry. The more I think about it, and of course Hillary being an extension of Barack Obama, the whole Israel thing would have continued. Now listen, the economy wasn't going to get any better. There were 2 or 3 other things that, of course, I couldn't stand, including their outlook on the war. But really, for me, the relationship with Israel is enough to say that I would never not only vote for Hillary Clinton, but until the Democrats really come to the table and start to realize that people like Keith Ellison should never be 2 in charge behind a guy like Tom Perez.
Right.
I can never vote Democrat again. So the answer is no, I wouldn't do it again. I'm not sure I'd vote for Donald Trump either. Maybe would have wasted my time and gone for Gary Johnson. Yeah,
so you're definitely not a Trump guy. There are odds in Vegas, actually, that Trump is impeached. Okay, it's actually 7-4 odds. Would you take that bet?
No, he's not getting impeached. I just don't see it. I mean, I know that Chuck Schumer would love it.
Yeah.
I know that Liz Warren would love it. I know that Nancy Pelosi would love it. Obama, Hillary, and tons of other people. And they do try. They try to railroad everything he does, and they continue to pile the names on him, and whether it's racist or sexist. And listen, he has said some very, very offensive things. I don't care what Bernie says or any of his supporters. He has said some very, very offensive things. He has said things that are absolutely in nature biased and racist and all those terms. Absolutely. That doesn't mean he is a racist. It doesn't mean, it's the same thing with Mike Francesa. What he said about the woman coach doesn't mean he's a chauvinist or a misogynist, but his remarks border on exactly that. And if you're not a Trump supporter and don't love Donald Trump and you just heard what he had to say initially in his campaign, you would come to a very rational conclusion. This guy hates everybody. And that's not a major stretch. But as you get to know what Donald Trump is trying to do, you have to eventually come and figure out that a lot of what he said, a lot of what he did was, in fact, trying to protect the country, trying to improve the country. And these other folks refuse to admit that that's part of the equation. They're just stuck on, well, he said this, well, he must be this. So for me, that type of nonsense, it's not going to work. And I fully expect that Donald Trump will preside for the next 4 years.
Right. You're very frustrated with both sides, and I think you're pretty centrist. You look at kind of issue by issue instead of defending Trump on everything or attacking Trump on everything. I think that there needs to be more people who take that approach. I definitely do. So what do you say? We move on to sports?
Do I do what?
Move on to sports?
Yeah, we can do that. I've got about 10 minutes to go. I got my kid upstairs, Gill and Gross. I love you to death, but
right.
My daughter just came up from school in Chelsea, and it's almost dinner time.
Oh, my God. Okay. What's for dinner?
I'm actually they love macaroni and cheese, so I'll be making them both my own macaroni and cheese, which is really frozen from Fresh Direct that I tell them I make.
All right, I see that strategy. So we'll do a little bit of rapid fire. All right. So do you side? Who gets more blame? Okay. In your mind, the Knicks suck. There's nothing to look forward to in the future. It's terrible times. Who do you blame more, or who should receive more of the blame? Phil Jackson or Carmelo Anthony?
Well, it's not Carmelo. I mean, Carmelo is still a very, very good player. He's an all-star player. I mean, to say it's Carmelo is beyond ridiculous. I'm so sick of the Knick man. I argued for years on FAN about Carmelo, and he's not a great player. He's a great scorer, but he's not a great player. His defense is his passing is he should be a better rebounder. Listen, some of that may be true. But at the end of the day, Carmelo is a legitimate all-star at the very least. Whether he's great, epic, fantastic, I don't know. But he's an all-star.
Right.
He's not the reason why the Knicks stink. In fact, a couple of years ago, when the Knicks won 54 games and beat the Celtics in the first round and lost to Indiana in the second round, it was all on Carmelo. I don't want to hear about Tyson Chandler and the rest of these guys. It was all on Carmelo. But he's gotten no help. I mean, look at this team this year. Derrick Rose is always hurt. And when he's not hurt, he's not very good. Porzingis has taken a major step backwards in year number 2. Courtney Lee has been lousy. Had a good game last night, but he hasn't done much. Noah's been a complete bust. I mean, a complete bust. So you look around this basketball team and you tell me how Carmelo can win.
I agree.
It's ridiculous to blame Carmelo. Now, it doesn't make sense in the Phil Jackson triangle, and it doesn't make sense in what the Knicks want to do on the court. That's one thing. But to blame a legitimate all-star for the Knicks' failures when, in fact, you can't name one other player, not one, on this Knicks team that's had a very good, to me, that's ridiculous.
That's right. I agree. You're making my points again. Would you rather inherit the Yankees or the Mets for the next 5 years?
No, it's the Mets. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I said there's no doubt about it, but I got to tell you, some of these young players for the Yankees, I know Frazier hit himself with a ball a couple of days ago, but he's a nice player. Didi at shortstop is very young, still a very good player. Castro's a young guy at second base. The young kid coming up, as they love Torres, I think he'll be a second baseman before a shortstop, but he's a young, very good player. Gary Sanchez, very exciting player. And Judge, of course, is an exciting player. Greg Bird is an exciting player. Really outside the rotation, but the only young guy is Luis Severino. But the everyday players for the Yankees, there are a ton of very exciting young players. So while the Mets are also a young team, the problem with the Mets is how many pitchers are they going to keep? Are they going to be the same? Matt Harvey is not the same guy and has not been the same during spring training. Jacob deGrom is not the same guy and has not been the same during spring training. The only guy that really looks fantastic is Noah Syndergaard. So the question is, A, will these Met pitchers ever be healthy and great again? And B, how many can they keep? The actual everyday players for the Mets, not a lot of young talent, right? I mean, Bruce is not young. Granderson is not young. Wright is not young. Reyes, dude is always hurt. So everyday players, the Yankees have a much, much more exciting future than the Mets.
Once again, most top 100 prospects for the Yankees out of anyone in baseball, and a lot of their terrible contracts coming off the books. They're going to have a lot of money to spend in some really good free agent classes, one that includes Bryce Harper. I'll take the Yankees. All right, Sid, before we go, we're going to play a quick game, all right?
Listen, next year you get Sabathia and A-Rod both off the books.
Yep.
So get ready for Machado to be at third base. Get ready for a big-time starter to come to the Bronx. And if some of these young kids actually have pretty good seasons and mature on the baseball field, they could be battling the Red Sox by next year.
Yep. Okay, so now before we go, we're going to play a quick game, all right? Because obviously, anyone who has a show, right, you on a larger scale than me, but still, we have to watch TV, right? There's games to watch, there's shows to watch. And I just tell, if my parents get on me, I go, I'm working. Do you say that to your wife?
When I'm watching TV, is that my excuse to watch certain events that I'm working?
Yeah, you're working. This is hard work, watching this TV.
I don't, because I'm going to admit this.
Yeah.
I tape a lot of things. I read an awful lot.
Yeah.
I try to get to the office at least an hour before the show, so I can read things I missed the night before.
Yeah.
And because my wife and I are great friends, we've been married 25 years in June, but we're great friends and we love hanging out together.
Yeah.
Most nights I find myself, instead of watching Knicks and Raptors or even the college basketball conference championships this week or a baseball game, most nights I'm watching Channel 18, which is the Bravo channel in New York. I'm watching Real Housewives of Atlanta, or I'm watching one of those shows, because I would rather do that and spend time with Danielle than be in a different room watching sports by myself,
right,
claiming I have to work. So Like,
Gotcha.
for example, tonight, Bernard is on Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
He'll let me watch that until 9 o'clock, but 9 o'clock comes along, it ain't going to be Georgia Tech Pittsburgh. It's going to be Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Got it. Okay, now you're a little bit, you're almost one step ahead of me, okay? Will Sid be watching, okay? And what you just said is actually on the list. So now we almost know the answers to the questions, but hey, we were going to get there anyway. Okay, so will Sid be watching? Sean Spicer's next press briefing.
No.
Tonight on MSG, Rangers at Panthers.
Some of that, yes.
Okay. Tonight on Bravo, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
I never miss that show, ever. That is one of my favorite ones. I know you're laughing at me, but that has gone past New Jersey and New York for me and past Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
It may even be my favorite. I got to think about that. But if you're asking me, I'll probably watch a little of all of it. But if you're asking me where will I spend the most time, it's going to be Real Housewives. Not even close.
Okay. Now we're going to jump to the future, all right? The first round of the NBA playoffs.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? I'm down on it, too. And I
By
like
the way,
the
that
NBA.
doesn't excite me. I'm down on the NBA. I'm a Knicks fan. I'm not an NBA fan.
Yeah.
I find the NBA to be boring. Got the Cavaliers in the East, are a pretty good team. They've been awful lately, but not a great team. And LeBron has really turned me off. The 2 seed is the Boston Celtics. That's not a great team.
No.
And out west, I got to tell you, Golden State, Kevin Durant is down. Curry is still great. They're a great team, but they don't do it for me. I do enjoy San Antonio, but truth is, I'm not an NBA fan. I'm a Knicks fan. So the first round of the playoffs doesn't excite me all that much.
Okay, and last one, Conor McGregor's next fight.
If it's against Floyd Mayweather, I won't miss it. If it's not, I don't care.
Boxing over MMA.
Mayweather said today, let's get this thing done. Come to the table already, shut your mouth, sign a contract, and, he's got to understand, I know you're an MMA fan like Bernard is, but to compare Conor McGregor to Floyd Mayweather is so ridiculous and silly. He's got to understand he's not going to get the Mayweather payday, but he's going to get a massive payday. Go out there, beat up Mayweather, and we'll see. But for Conor McGregor, it's really he's a nobody compared to Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather is one of the greatest boxers in the history of the game. Your sport is still an up-and-coming sport. I know it's popular, but it's not nearly as popular as you guys think it is. McGregor's got to shut his mouth, take his $10 million, whatever he gets, and do the fight.
Or stay in MMA because he'd probably get his ass kicked in boxing, and even I will admit that. They're different sports. But anyway, Sid, I can't even put into words how much I appreciate you coming on. It's huge for me, huge for the show, and I had so much fun.
Well, I got to tell you, I've had a lot of interns over the years. I've been in this business now for 20 years, starting with Sportsline down in Florida, WNEW in New York, to all the stations in Miami and the fan and ABC. And I'm not just saying this to blow smoke your way. You were, if not my favorite, if not one of my favorites, probably my favorite intern. You worked hard. You were there early. You left late. You and I got along really well. You did some on-air stuff, which was great. Anything we asked of you, you got done. So I think, your future in this business is very, very bright. You're a smart kid. You know your stuff. Even what you did just now with me was terrific. Not good, terrific. So I think you've got a massively bright future ahead of you. And we loved having you, and you're always, Gill and Gross, a part of the Bernie and Sid Show.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it, and I hope to be back soon. If not, I'll see you around.
All right, Gill, and thank you, pal.
All right.
Great job.
Thanks, Sid. All right, that was Sid Rosenberg. What an awesome show. What a fun show. I'll be cutting this up and putting the highlights everywhere. Anyway, so that's Sid Rosenberg. Always hilarious. Never holds back. Did not hold back on Francesa. He will never hold back. We got some inside intel about Max, about basically after Mike Francesa, and I'm sure he said this before, but when Mad Dog left WFAN, because it was Mike and the Mad Dog, when Mad Dog left, it was Sid and Max Kellerman who WFAN was looking to hire. I believe that when he says that. There's no reason to believe that he's obviously lying. I wouldn't believe that for a second. He's got every detail nailed down. So that was cool to hear that. Let's see. We talked about WABC. We talked about Trump. He actually surprised me with the Trump answer because he's very hard on Donald Trump. If you listen from 9 to noon, it's the Bernie and Sid Show on 770 on your AM dial. The Bernie and Sid Show. He's very hard on Trump, and he gets killed for it. They call in and they kill him for being hard on Trump because it's a conservative listenership. But he would actually rescind his vote for Hillary Clinton because the Democrats have disgusted him on the Israel issue. Sid is a Jew. I'm also a Jew. So that's very interesting to hear, and I wonder how many other people feel about that. He does not see Trump being impeached. The odds in Vegas are 7-4, but he does not see that. He sides with Carmelo Anthony. He does not blame Carmelo Anthony for the Knicks' struggles. He'll take the Yankees' future in the next 5 years. I skipped the football questions, so we went nice and long on these questions. Could have went an hour easily, but we went a half hour. As you heard, he had kids to feed with mac and cheese. He will not be watching Sean Spicer's next press briefing. He'll be watching a little bit Rangers at Panthers. He will be watching the entire Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Won't be watching the first round of the NBA playoffs, and will only be watching Conor McGregor's next fight if it's against Floyd Mayweather. It has been such a fun show, and we'll try to do it again. I'll keep you updated. I'll continue to talk about the Bernie and Sid Show. I love it, and I always want to be a part of it. And basically, once again, a big thank you to Sid Rosenberg for coming on. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.